Hello, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining this webinar on sustainable public aquaria and ornamental fish, with some in-depth information about the global industry, education, sustainability, and some case studies. We have here with us the director of AquaRio, the major aquarium in South America, which obtained recently the Friend of the Sea certification. So here are our guests today, and Paolo Brai and Luca Sorrentino, the project manager for Sustainable Aquarium Project in Friend of the Sea, and Marcelo Spillman, director of AquaRio, Aquario Marino de Rio de Janeiro. I'm director of the WSO, the World Sustainability Organization, which has developed a number of certifications, namely Friend of the Sea for products from sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, and Friend of the Earth for products from sustainable agriculture and farming. I'm also the international director of the Dolphin Safe project of the Earth Island Institute. Over 1,000 companies in more than 100 countries worldwide have these certifications on their products. So the first aquaria, the first home aquaria, were apparently produced in China in 1369 in the form of porcelain tubs for goldfish. And then the public aquarium craze started in the middle of the 1800s with the opening of the first fish house at the London Zoo and the first aquarium at Bois de Boulogne in Paris. Of course, in 1980, the main home aquarium was this aquarium, and then things developed quite fast as we got closer to year 2000. With new aquaria infrastructure being developed and new technologies, and also the home aquaria industry has recently introduced always more extravagant aquaria to satisfy the hobbyist fantasies. But let's be a bit more serious and look at the ornamental aquatic species market, trade and trends. First of all, we should understand the size compared to the production of seafood, for example. In terms of catches, the part that is caught from the sea represents a very, very small percentage compared to the total catch for human consumption, as you can see from this image. A small percentage which can, however, have a very positive social impact, economic impact in the countries where it has mostly developed in terms of production, both farming and wild caught. As we can see, most of the suppliers are in the southern hemisphere, in developing countries, so this can have a potential positive benefit for social economic growth in these countries. The total production of ornamental fish, where does it go? Only 1% goes to the public aquaria, while greatest majority goes to the home aquaria, the hobbyist market. We're talking about 2,500 species, of which, in terms of number of species, 60% come from fresh water and are mostly farmed from this for this type of species, while 40% are saltwater species, mostly wild caught. Still, even though the farm part is growing, the global retail value of ornamental species, ornamental fish species, and aquatic species is about $10 billion. But adding up to that is the accessories production and industry, which is basically double the value. These are the most traded species. So mainly guppies, neon tetra, angelfish, damsel already make almost 50% of the total production. You see here some of these beautiful species. The fish trade has grown over the years, as you can see, has had a six-fold growth. But it looks a bit stagnant. I'm talking about the value of the import and exports in the more recent years. In terms of the origin of the ornamental species, 50% and more comes from Asia, and 29% from Europe, South America, and North America. So here you see the main export countries. Singapore is a major player, as well as Malaysia, Indonesia, as well as Philippines, Sri Lanka. And in terms of import areas, we see that Europe is by far the major importer, followed by Asia and the US. And imports from South America and Africa are much, much lower. So the US stands out as the largest importer of ornamental fish, followed by UK, Germany, Japan, France, Netherlands, and Canada. If we look at the coral trade trends, we see that it started in the 1950s, and recently several countries prohibited the collection and trade, which is now strictly regulated also by CITES. And however, in the 90s, the trade in live corals has risen, as well as live rock, and to satisfy the demand from the private and public aquaria. In particular, the live coral trade is still growing, and 70% comes from Indonesia. Propagation initiatives have started off in several areas of the world to try and reduce pressure from the wild. However, until now, initiatives have concentrated on the fast-growing acropora, the fast-growing corals, and little or no commercial success has been obtained with the farming of or propagation of other popular varieties, even though there's hope for improvement. Let's look now closer to the potential environmental and social and economic impact of the ornamental aquatic species trade. So in this table, we summarize the potential environmental and social impact. Of course, some of them are shared by the fishing and potentially the farming industry for production of seafood for human consumption. And there are issues such as overexploitation, which can lead to population declines and which can be reduced by introduction of quota or set fishing seasons. The impact of unselective fishing or destructive fishing techniques, which can impact the habitat, the corals, can generate mortality of non-target species, and should be regulated by the introduction of selective gears and other penalties to avoid the destructive fishing method. Then there are issues related to the actual trade or handling of these fish, and thus post-harvest mortality can lead to an increase in need of supply because part of the fish go wasted. And this can be tackled with improved handling and water quality standards. Similar issues can occur for captivity after the sale or during the transportation. And then there's an important issue, the lack of fishery data. Most of these stocks are data deficient, and only recently some initiatives have been undertaken, mainly at the national level, to improve the reporting, the monitoring, scientific research on these species. Once the fish reach the consumer, there is a risk of release of aquarium pets in the wild, with consequences in terms of diseases, invasive species, and this can be improved with awareness, information, and also legal initiatives. Last but not least, there can be socioeconomic issues and problems for the use of these resources, for the risk incurred by the workers, by the fishermen, and by the fact that the fishermen themselves receive a very small part of the premium, of the total price of the fish. So this also is an area which has a strong potential for improvement. This is why Friend of the Sea some years ago has introduced a new standard, new requirement for the certification of sustainable ornamental fish species. And you can see here listed a summary of these requirements. There's of course much more information on the web, and one company in Fiji has been certified. We hope that shortly, also with the development of the sustainable aquaria certification, more will join. Friend of the Sea has also been proactive in conservation and has supported a reef propagation project in Fiji. So we saw that only 1% of these ornamental species go to the aquaria industry, the public aquaria industry, but this is also a very important industry in terms of the potential consumer awareness, and also some potential issues which have to be solved and which are gradually being solved. So let's look at the situation, and here we can see that globally there's about 570 aquaria. Within these, we have included in these statistics also dolphinariums, which sometimes are much smaller and are only focused on dolphins. But this is the data, and you see that North America is the area where there are more aquaria, but followed very closely by Europe and Asia. And we see that Asia has the highest number of dolphinarium, but not so different in total from North America and Europe. Here we can see more in detail the top countries in terms of presence of aquaria: USA, Japan, United Kingdom, India, Brazil are some of the countries with the highest number of aquaria, and the countries with the highest number of dolphinariums: Japan, USA, Mexico, Spain, China, Russia, and so on. A curiosity, a statistics that we worked out, the density of aquarium dolphinarium per person, per 10 million people. And here you can see that the place, the continent with the highest density of aquaria is by far Oceania. As well, it is the top one in terms of density of dolphinarium. So that's food for thought, let's say. So let's now look at the newly built aquarium. We can see that about 70 were built between 2000 and 2009, and we estimate that overall 1/3 of the currently existing aquarium aquaria were built since 2000. So it's a growing industry. The positive aspect is that about 350 million US dollars have been spent by Aquaria for conservation. And interesting to know that every year about 700 million visitors go to and visit this aquarium worldwide. A few slides, a few information regarding marine mammals in captivity, the impact, the animal welfare. There's about 3,000 between dolphins and orcas in aquaria worldwide. Here you can see the distribution. It's important to understand that a good part comes from dolphin hunting activities, such as those occurring in Taiji, in Japan. And an estimation is that of each dolphin in captivity, about 10 are killed in the process. So there's an impact on the population. This said, apparently from some studies, the public is not so keen in seeing the dolphins and the orcas anymore, and about 70% of the public from this study say that the absence of orcas at marine park would not affect their desire or decision to visit. And it would be interesting to know, and I launch a poll as soon as I finish this part of the presentation, if there's also a negative impact. So how many people would not go to a dolphinarium or would not go to an aquarium with dolphins in captivity? I won't go much more in detail on this, but let's hear now from Lucas Sorrentino about public aquaria and fish welfare and consumers awareness. Let me pass the microphone to Lucas. Just bear with me for a second. Thank you, Lucas. I'll pass you the microphone.
Hello, everyone. So let's start continue the presentation. So the public aquarium, the acquisition of living animals, including corals, for use in the aquarium, must be made in a sustainable manner, from sustainable aquaculture and sustainable fisheries. So as well as the acquisition of feed used to feed the species exhibited in the aquarium in general. And so the next slide, I talking about the aquariums that have the potential to be examples in sustainability for the population, and the importance of the environmental education on these institutes. As we can see, the mermaid tell a little bit for us that we are responsible for our garbage that we leave in the beach, and other things like can be into the sea. So talking about the recent studies at those visitors, with those visitors and aquariums, they were invited to give their opinion on 3 categories. Those who have no objection to keeping animals on human care, say yes. Those who said that it was okay to keep some animals, but not certain very large or intelligent species, said maybe. And those who said animals should never be kept in zoos or aquariums, said no. And others first received a description of conservation work being carried out in these institutions. And for the visitors ages by 18 to 13, 5 who were giving no description of conservation work, they had 25% had no objections, and 51% had some objections, and 24% said that these animals should never be kept in zoos or aquariums. However, for those interviewed who had been given the description of conservation work, 69% had no objections, and 56% had some objections, while only 5% that said that the animals should never be kept in zoologicals or aquarium institutions. So we can see the importance of the education and the message aquariums can pass to the population. So aquariums have this role of maintaining the highest standard of animal welfare for their individuals, so that with this demonstration they can pass the conservation message to the public. Always look for patterns of animals welfare already developed by associations that aquariums already part of. So animal welfare certification are very welcome to collaborate the actions of the aquarium. Through animal welfare management techniques, the access of the animal is facilitated, and with it, the possibility of the executing exams, for example, without need for sedation. Always looking for the minimal stress for the animal and safety for the person who did the job. So talking about a little bit our sustainable aquarium requirements. Friend of the Sea has developed requirements for sustainable aquarium. Details are available on our website, such as full requirements description, application form, and a list of certified aquarium, Friend of the Sea certified aquariums. And are included in groups of criteria under following headings: environmental management system, sourcing of aquatic species in a sustainable way, animal welfare procedure and practice to be in place in the aquarium, public education and awareness activities and conservation initiatives, presenting of population and also social accountability policy and rules, pollution, and also social accountability policies and rules. Two aquariums have been certified since the launch of the program, an aquarium in northern UK, the Lake District Coast Aquarium in May 2019. For anyone interested in the certification of aquaria or ornamental fish species, feel free to contact us at info@friendofthesea.org. And AquaRio in March 2019 obtained the Friend of the Sea certification, and now I will let Mr. Marcelo, the director of AquaRio, tell us about the certification and the experience that he has to open this beautiful aquarium.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my name is Marcelo Spielman. I'm director of Aquarium, Rio de Janeiro Aquarium, the biggest aquarium from South America. The aquarium of Rio de Janeiro opened in November 2016, and it's an aquarium of 4.5 million liters of salt water, and it's 100% of private. Now it's a new symbol of the city of Rio. Okay, The aquarium of Rio, we have here, it's a real aquarium. We have a virtual aquarium, and we have a education center, research center, and conservation center. Now I present each other for you. Yeah, the real aquarium, we have 28 tanks, 4.5 liters in total. The biggest tank we call oceanic tank have a 3.5 liter of salt water, and we have more 27 tanks, only fishes and marine invertebrates, and a total of 5 million, 5,000 animals and 150 different species. We have interaction with the people, the visitors, with the diving sites. The people now can dive at the big tank, at the oceanic tank. It's a unique experience of diving with sharks, rays, and fishes. We have 18 sharks in the tank. It's very nice. It's a blue water, very clear, and we have a tank, a touch tank, to demystify the animals, especially the sharks. The virtual aquarium, we have a innovations, it's a technology. Then you can create a virtual fish that accompanies you in the visiting, and you have a shark guide. We have another technologies to have a interactivity. Okay, the aquarium focus three principles: education, research, and conservation. It's a 3P. We have a work of education here with a lot of actions in education with the children, especially the children. We have the schools, private schools and public schools. The public schools get free entrance with distribution brochures with education, with information for education for the students. We have 1,000 students. We have a campaign here, a lot of campaign. This is one of them. Your garbage is mine, and then use the mermaid to approximate children, because it's more simple and easy to make this approximation, and use this environment education to aboard the garbage in the ocean. This is another one, a responsible consumption of fishing resources. A lot of species are decline and is almost finished. And we have this campaign to show the people what you can eat, what you don't eat, maybe to the people get more responsible with your consumption. Yeah. The scientific research here, we have a lot of researchers with the principal universities and institutions in the Rio, the Federal University of Rio, especially. We have 26 researchers. One of them is to avoid the climbing, the breaching, the coral breaching. And we have a lot of postdoctors, PhDs, masters, monographies. We have a lot of researchers here, and I think this is very important. For biodiversity conservation, we have a lot of species here that are endangered, and we are making the reproduction in the site. Now we can produce 4 species of rays, the endangered species, sharks, horsefish, jellyfish, and we are studying to reproduction a lot of other species. And this is the numbers of the first year. Now we have more than 2 years, and we have almost 2.8 million of visitors, and this demonstrates the success of this aquarium with the people, with the visitors, with the students, and the reproduction of endangered species. And this is the certification, the animal welfare certification, the first institution in Brazil to grant this certification. It's very important to us to demonstrate that the aquarium of Rio make a very good work and a very welfare animal attitude. Okay. And now with the Friend of the Sea certification, we are very proud of this certification. This is solar energy is the first one of the biggest solar project in the state of Rio, in Brazil. We can produce now 30% of our energy demand. It's a case of sustainability. Okay, thank you for all. We are waiting for the question. Yeah?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Spillmann and Lucas. Let's see if we have some questions here. Somebody is complaining about the volume. Well, as maybe somebody will start asking for questions. Normally we get a lot of questions. We know that this is quite a specific subject. Normally we are more into the seafood and so on. But I'm glad to see that there are attendants also for this specific subject. I have a question for Dr. Spillmann. What feedback did you get or do you get from your visitors, from the public, when they learn about your engagement in sustainability, maybe the Friend of the Sea certification, maybe the other animal welfare recognitions? Do you get feedback from the public, maybe also from the team, because I know that you have a large team there at the aquarium. How is their feeling about this engagement?
I think you're listening. Okay, I think the people can see the work we are doing here, a good work. But I think these certifications, the Friend of the Sea and the welfare certification, it's important to show the people that we have these certifications. It's almost the same with the researchers. We have a lot of researchers here, but we have to show the people that we make research. It's important to show the people these certifications. And I think the people, the visitors, make very well to know that the Aquarium of Rio have this specification and have this good work with animals.
Thank you. So I also wanted to ask, before answering one of the questions, I wanted to ask myself to Lucas and to Dr. Spielman, what is the response from the local fish suppliers? According to Friend of the Sea requirements, the aquarium had to provide evidence that it was sourcing in a responsible and sustainable way, and within 2 years the origin will have to be certified Friend of the Sea. So we know that Lucas has been in contact with the suppliers, with the local fishermen. Can you tell me a little bit about this in a summarized way?
Our crew have training with the last 2, 3, or 4 years with one of the best company in the world, Flying Shark, and now we have 100% of survive by with the catch, the people that catch the fish and bring to the aquarium. 100% of survive, and I think we have a good work this area. Almost another information. We have the smaller percentile tax of survive all the animals in the world. Our survival tax at the animals at the aquarium is almost the smaller of the world.
And talk a little bit our certification to guarantee the Friend of the Sea seal. The aquarium must provide this information, this documental information about how they training their staff to capture, maintain, and transport these animals to aquarium, and how they do this practice in their transport to maintain the welfare of each transporting action.
Thank you very much, Lucas and Doctor. We have a question about import of corals into Switzerland. We are surely able to answer you, Angel, following the webinar. I don't currently have this specific detailed data, but we have a number of papers and information available. So we will get back to you after this. So I think I just go to the polls to see what the replies were. So we asked, what do you think public aquaria are do you think public aquaria are mostly positive or negative for conservation? Well, 2/3 are saying that they are mostly positive. And would you visit an aquarium with dolphins in captivity? Well, we see that almost basically 3/4 are saying that they would not go to an aquarium with dolphins in captivity, which is good news. So it looks like the public opinion, even though this is not statistically relevant, of course, but there is a reason to believe that public opinion is shifting towards aquaria like the AquaRio, which don't have dolphins or marine mammals in captivity. Great. Well, I think we will close here. There are no more questions. So I remember you that a video of the webinar will be available and be sent to all the people who register just after we close this webinar. Thank you all, and be in touch with the next webinars coming on in the following weeks. Thank you very much.